Imagine pulling into your own driveway after work only to have your neighbor storm across the street, scream that you stole your own car, and call the police. Minutes later, you're surrounded by flashing lights and raised voices fighting to prove the obvious truth. Hands up, step away from the vehicle. Marcus Thompson pulled his black BMW into the driveway of his modest two-story house on Maple Ridge Circle, the same house he'd called home for 8 years. The engine's hum died as he shifted into park, but before he could even grab his briefcase from the passenger seat, a commotion erupted from across the street. "Stop right there. That's my car." The voice belonged to Patricia Williams, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood's homeowners association. She charged across the asphalt in her perfectly pressed khakis and polo shirt, her phone already pressed to her ear. "Yes, 911? I need police immediately. There's a man stealing my car right now. He's at 2247 Maple Ridge Circle." Marcus stepped out slowly, his hands visible, confusion etched across his face. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cul-de-sac, and he could see curtains twitching in nearby windows as neighbors began to take notice. "Patricia, what are you talking about? This is my car. You've seen me drive it for years." But Patricia wasn't listening. She paced at the edge of his driveway like a caged animal, her voice growing more shrill with each word. "Don't lie to me. I just bought that exact car yesterday. Same model. Same color, same everything. You broke into my garage and stole it." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He dealt with Patricia's complaints before, letters about his grass being a quarter-inch too long, citations for leaving his garbage can out past pickup time, demands that he repaint his mailbox to match the community standards. But this was different. This was dangerous. "Patricia, look at the license plate. Look at my registration. This is my car." "Fake," she screamed, jabbing her finger at him. "You criminals always have fake papers ready. Don't think I don't know how this works."
If you are enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means a lot to us. We are just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you. And back to the video.
Within minutes, 3 patrol cars converged on the quiet street, their red and blue lights painting the suburban landscape in urgent, pulsing colors. Marcus raised his hands instinctively, his military training from 2 decades ago kicking in. Stay calm, follow commands, survive the encounter. Officer Rodriguez emerged from the lead vehicle, his hand resting on his holster. Behind him came Officers Chun and Murphy, spreading out in a tactical formation that made the scene look like a drug bust rather than a property dispute. "Sir, step away from the vehicle," Rodriguez commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Marcus complied, moving slowly toward his front porch where his 16-year-old daughter Kenya had appeared, her phone already recording everything. "Daddy, what's happening?" Kenya's voice trembled, but she kept the camera steady. "It's okay, baby. Just keep recording. Everything's going to be fine." Patricia pushed forward, her face flushed with righteous indignation. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man stole my BMW. I have all the paperwork inside to prove it. He's been planning this, probably watching me, waiting for the right moment." Officer Rodriguez looked between Marcus and Patricia, then at the car. "Ma'am, do you have proof of purchase with you?" "It's inside. I can get it right now." Patricia started toward her house, but Rodriguez held up a hand. "Ma'am, please stay here. We need to sort this out step by step." He turned to Marcus. "Sir, do you have registration and insurance for this vehicle?" Marcus nodded carefully. "In the glove compartment. My wallet has my license. Everything will show this car belongs to me." What neither the officers nor the gathering crowd of neighbors knew was that Marcus Thompson wasn't just another resident of Maple Ridge Circle. Hidden beneath his simple button-down shirt and tired expression was a truth that would soon turn this entire confrontation on its head. Marcus had spent the last 12 years as a senior investigator for the state's Department of Motor Vehicles, specializing in vehicle fraud and title disputes. He'd seen every scam, every forged document, every angle that criminals use to steal cars and assume false identities. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now being accused of the very crimes he'd spent his career fighting. But more than that, Marcus served as a reserve police captain for the county sheriff's department, a position he'd held for 6 years. The officers standing before him with their hands on their weapons didn't recognize him out of uniform, but their supervisor would. The question was whether things would escalate before backup arrived. Patricia continued her performance, growing more animated with each passing moment. Look at him. Look how calm he is. That's not normal for someone being questioned by police. He's done this before. He knows exactly how to act. Kenya's voice cut through the tension. She's lying. This is our car. We've had it since I was in middle school. Don't believe her, Patricia snapped. Children will say anything to protect their parents. They're probably in on it together. Officer Chen approached the BMW cautiously, peering through the windows. Sir, I need to see the registration. Are there any weapons in the vehicle? No weapons. Registration is in the glove compartment. Insurance card is with it. As Chun retrieved the documents, Marcus caught sight of more neighbors gathering. The Johnsons from 2 houses down stood on their porch, shaking their heads in disgust. Mrs. Chun, no relation to the officer from next door, had come out to her mailbox, clearly stalling to watch the drama unfold. The documents Chun handed to Rodriguez told the story Marcus knew they would. Registration in his name, insurance current, everything matching his driver's license perfectly. But Patricia wasn't deterred. Those are fake. Don't you see? He had those made. You can get anything online these days. I'm telling you, I bought that exact car yesterday from Premier Motors downtown. By now, nearly 24 neighbors had gathered, and the crowd was beginning to divide. Some shook their heads in disbelief at Patricia's accusations, while others whispered among themselves, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. I've seen Marcus with that car for years, called out Tom Bradley, a retired teacher who lived at the corner. Patricia, you're making a mistake. But Janet Morris from 3 houses down stepped forward, her arms crossed. How do we know what's real anymore? You hear about identity theft all the time. Maybe she really did buy the car, and he's got fake papers. Marcus felt a familiar burn in his chest, the same feeling he'd experienced countless times throughout his life when his integrity was questioned simply because of how he looked. But this time, his daughter was watching. This time, the entire neighborhood would see how far prejudice and power could twist the truth. Kenya's phone captured every word, every gesture, every moment of the surreal scene playing out on their front lawn. She filmed as Patricia continued her accusations, as neighbors chose sides, as the officers methodically checked and rechecked documents that clearly proved her father's ownership of the vehicle. Dad, Kenya whispered during a brief lull in the shouting, why don't you just tell them who you are? Marcus kept his eyes on the officers, his voice low. Because I shouldn't have to, baby. The truth should be enough. The revelation builds. Officer Rodriguez studied the registration for the 3rd time, cross-referencing it with Marcus's driver's license. Everything matched perfectly. The vehicle identification number, the license plate, the insurance policy number. But Patricia's absolute certainty created doubt where none should have existed. Sir, Rodriguez said carefully, these documents appear to be in order, but given the circumstances, we need to run a complete check through DMV records. Marcus nodded. Of course. Do what you need to do. As Rodriguez called in the VIN number to dispatch, Marcus noticed a familiar black Suburban turning onto Maple Ridge Circle. His pulse quickened. Sheriff's Department vehicle, and he recognized the driver. Patricia saw it too, and her voice rose to near hysteria. More police. Good. They need to arrest him before he runs. But Marcus knew better. Deputy Chief Harrison was behind the wheel, likely responding to the address because he recognized it. Marcus had been to department barbecues at Harrison's house just 2 blocks away. They'd worked together on task force operations. They'd shared coffee and case files and war stories about the job. The Suburban pulled to a stop, and Harrison stepped out, his eyes immediately finding Marcus in the crowd. Recognition flickered across his face, followed quickly by confusion and concern. What's the situation here? Harrison asked Rodriguez, though his eyes never left Marcus. Dispute over vehicle ownership, sir. This gentleman has proper documentation, but the complainant insists the car was stolen from her. Harrison nodded slowly, processing the scene. Behind him, a second patrol car arrived, and Marcus's heart sank as he saw Sergeant Williams, no relation to Patricia, emerge from the driver's seat. Another officer who knew exactly who Marcus was. The walls of the charade were about to come tumbling down. Officer Rodriguez, Deputy Chief Harrison said carefully, I believe there may be some confusion here. Can I see the documentation? As Harrison examined the registration, recognition dawned on Sergeant Williams as well. The two law enforcement veterans exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Patricia, sensing a shift in the dynamic, pushed forward again. Finally, someone with authority is here. I demand you arrest this man immediately. I have proof he stole my car. Harrison looked up from the documents, his expression carefully neutral. Ma'am, what proof do you have? I bought that exact car yesterday. Same make, same model, same color. The dealership records will prove it. And which dealership was that? Harrison asked. Premier Motors downtown. I can call them right now. Harrison nodded. That's a good idea. But first, I need to clarify something. He turned to Marcus, and there was something like an apology in his eyes. Sir, can you state your full name and occupation for the record? Marcus had been waiting for this moment, dreading it and anticipating it in equal measure. He straightened his shoulders and looked directly at the officers who had been treating him like a suspect. Marcus Thompson, Senior Investigator with the State Department of Motor Vehicles, Vehicle Fraud Division. Reserve Captain with the County Sheriff's Department. The silence that followed was deafening. Officer Rodriguez's face went pale. Officer Chin took a step back. Even the murmuring crowd of neighbors fell quiet. Patricia's mouth opened and closed several times before any sound emerged. That's impossible. You're lying. Deputy Chief Harrison's voice carried a new weight of authority. Captain Thompson is telling the truth. I've worked with him for 6 years. He's one of our most experienced investigators specializing in exactly this type of case, vehicle fraud and title disputes. Officer Rodriguez found his voice, and it cracked slightly. Sir, we had no way of knowing. Marcus held up a hand, his tone gentle but firm. You followed procedure, officer. You responded to a complaint and checked documentation. You did exactly what you should have done. But Patricia wasn't finished. Her face had gone from flushed to ashen, but her voice remained defiant. I don't care what title he claims to have. That's still my car. The professional response. What happened next demonstrated why Marcus Thompson had earned his reputation as one of the state's most effective fraud investigators. He pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed a number from memory. Premier Motors, Sales Department, came the voice through the speaker. This is Senior Investigator Thompson with the State DMV. I need to verify a vehicle purchase. Yesterday's date, customer name Patricia Williams. He rattled off the VIN number from his own car. The pause on the other end stretched long enough for everyone to hear. Sir, I show no sale to that customer name on yesterday's date. And that VIN number, that shows is registered to a Marcus Thompson since 2018. Patricia's face crumbled, but she made one last desperate attempt. They're wrong. They made a mistake. Marcus continued speaking to the dealership. Can you confirm what vehicles were sold to any customer with the last name Williams in the past week? Let me check. I show a Patricia Williams purchased a blue Honda Civic on Tuesday. VIN number. He read off a completely different sequence of numbers. Marcus ended the call and looked at Patricia with something that might have been pity. You did buy a car this week, Patricia. A blue Honda Civic. It's probably sitting in your garage right now while you're out here accusing me of stealing my own BMW. The crowd of neighbors began murmuring again, but the tone had shifted completely. Where there had been uncertainty, now there was embarrassment for Patricia, for the situation, for the entire community that had let it get this far. Kenya lowered her phone slightly, her voice barely a whisper. Dad, she really thought I couldn't possibly own something nice, Marcus finished for her. She saw a successful black man in an expensive car, and her mind went to the worst possible explanation. Deputy Chief Harrison addressed the crowd of neighbors that had gathered. This incident is now officially closed. Captain Thompson has proven ownership of his vehicle beyond any reasonable doubt. The complaint was filed in error. But Marcus wasn't ready to let it end there. His voice carried across the cul-de-sac with the authority of someone accustomed to addressing courtrooms and official proceedings. I want everyone here to think about what just happened. Patricia Williams saw me, a man she's known as her neighbor for 8 years, driving a car I've owned for 5 years, and she immediately assumed I was a criminal. She didn't check her facts. She didn't consider alternatives. She called 911 and told them there was a car thief in progress. Patricia had retreated to her porch, but his words still reached her. She put my life at risk. She traumatized my daughter. She turned our neighborhood into a crime scene because she couldn't accept the possibility that her black neighbor might own something nice. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some neighbors looked ashamed, others defensive. A few began drifting back toward their homes, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation had taken. Officer Rodriguez approached Marcus, his posture respectful now in a way it hadn't been 20 minutes earlier. Captain Thompson, I apologize for any misunderstanding. We were responding to the call, as reported. Marcus studied the young officer's face, seeing genuine remorse there. You did your job, Rodriguez. But I want you to remember this night. Remember how easy it was to assume the worst about someone based on nothing but an accusation. Remember that the next time you respond to a call like this. Over the following hours, the story spread through Maple Ridge Circle like wildfire. Neighbors who had initially supported Patricia quietly distanced themselves. The HOA board, which had backed her complaints for years, suddenly found itself questioning every decision she'd influenced. Kenya's video, which she had uploaded to social media with her father's permission, began to gain traction beyond their small community. Comments poured in from people sharing similar experiences, from law enforcement officers expressing shame at how the situation had been handled, from community leaders calling for better training and awareness. But the most significant change was happening right in their neighborhood. Tom Bradley, the retired teacher, knocked on their door the next evening with a formal petition to remove Patricia Williams from her position as HOA president. Within 48 hours, he had signatures from 73% of the households in the subdivision. What she did to you is wrong, Bradley told Marcus as they sat on the front porch where the confrontation had occurred. But more than that, it showed us who she really is. This wasn't her first time abusing her authority, just her most public. Mrs. Chun from next door brought over a casserole and an apology. I should have spoken up immediately. I've seen you with that car 1,000 times. I was just scared to get involved. Fear makes cowards of us all sometimes, Marcus replied. The important thing is that you're here now. The incident had ramifications beyond Maple Ridge Circle. Deputy Chief Harrison used it as a training case at the Sheriff's Academy, teaching new recruits about implicit bias and the importance of thorough investigation over quick assumptions. Marcus found himself invited to speak at police departments across the state, sharing his unique perspective as both a law enforcement officer and someone who had been treated as a suspect in his own driveway. The badge doesn't protect you, he would tell audiences of police officers. The uniform doesn't protect you. Nothing protects you from being seen as guilty first and having to prove your innocence. That's a reality that some of us live with every day, and it's something all of us need to understand. His presentations were uncomfortable for many officers, but they were necessary. They forced conversations about race and authority that had been avoided for too long. Patricia Williams didn't go quietly. She fought the petition to remove her from the HOA board, claiming she was being persecuted for trying to protect the neighborhood. She hired a lawyer and threatened to sue Marcus for defamation, though the threat went nowhere since truth is an absolute defense. But the community had seen enough. The vote to remove her wasn't even close. 89% in favor of her dismissal. The new HOA board, led by Tom Bradley, implemented new policies requiring evidence before any complaints could be filed and establishing an appeals process for residents who felt they had been unfairly targeted. Patricia's house went up for sale 3 months later. The day the moving truck arrived, she approached Marcus one final time. I hope you're satisfied, she said, her voice bitter. "You've destroyed my life." Marcus looked at her with something that might have been pity. "Patricia, you destroyed your own life the moment you decided I couldn't possibly belong here. All I did was tell the truth." She had no response to that. 2 years later, Kenya Thompson graduated as valedictorian of her high school class. In her speech, she talked about the night her father was accused of stealing his own car and what it taught her about courage and truth. "My dad could have ended that confrontation in 30 seconds by flashing his badge and revealing who he was," she told the assembled crowd of graduates and families. "But he didn't, because he believed that being Black shouldn't require special credentials to be treated with basic human dignity." She continued, her voice strong and clear. "That night taught me that truth doesn't always speak the loudest, but it always lasts the longest. Lies might get attention, but truth gets justice." Marcus watched from the audience, his chest swelling with pride. His daughter had learned the most important lesson he could teach her, that integrity isn't about being perfect, it's about standing firm when everything around you is trying to bend you into something you're not. The incident on Maple Ridge Circle became a case study taught in law enforcement academies across the country. It spawned new policies about implicit bias training and community policing. It forced uncomfortable conversations about race, authority, and the assumptions we make about our neighbors. But for Marcus Thompson, the real victory was much simpler. He had stood in his own driveway, in front of his own home, and refused to be made into something he wasn't. He had shown his daughter that truth, however uncomfortable, however inconvenient, however dangerous, was always worth defending. And in the end, that was enough. The BMW still sits in the garage at 2247 Maple Ridge Circle, a silent testament to the night when assumptions collided with reality and truth finally prevailed. The neighborhood is different now, more conscious, more careful, more aware of the power of words and accusations. Patricia Williams moved to a different state, but the lessons she left behind remain. They remind everyone who hears the story that our first assumptions about people can be wrong, dangerously wrong, and that courage sometimes means standing still and letting the truth speak for itself. Marcus Thompson continues his work investigating vehicle fraud, continues his service as a reserve police captain, and continues living in the house he bought with his own hard work and dedication. But most importantly, he continues to be a father who showed his daughter that dignity is not negotiable, that truth is worth defending, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to become what other people's prejudices want to make you. The lesson echoes far beyond one suburban street. Stand in your truth, even when the world tries to convince you that you don't belong there. Because you do belong, in your home, in your community, and in the dignity that no one else has the right to take away from you.